How's traveling with a baby different than not traveling with a baby? It's not better or worse, but there are a lot of things that I guess I didn't realize or expect. So this is 10 things that you should know before traveling with your little one. So I've traveled to over 60 countries, 50 of which I visited by myself. So this is a big change for me to be going with a baby. And we went to Vermont last week on our first cross-country trip ever with Felix, and it was a smashing success.
You did it! Good job!
But there's a lot of things that we learned kind of the hard way that I want to share with you today. So the number 10 thing that we learned is that you're gonna just prioritize different things. Before having a baby, I would wake up before dawn to go out and photograph the sunrise. I might even hike to this sunrise. It might take me hours. I would get up at 3 a.m. to photograph the Milky Way, and I might stay out there for hours. The most important thing to me was getting the coolest footage, the best photography. That was what motivated my travels back then, and it didn't bother anyone because it was just me. But now I have to consider other people, and that is really totally fine. I'm cool with travel changing for me. I traveled one way for a decade, and now I'm traveling a new way, and I fully invite that. But we were sleeping in until like 10 when we were in Vermont, and we just didn't get going until 2 each day.
I need a hand.
There were no sunrises. There weren't even really sunsets that we stayed out for. I sure as hell didn't photograph the stars or anything like that. And I guess I didn't quite realize beforehand how many things are not baby friendly. So that's just a new consideration for these early years of his life when we're planning our trips. Number 9, there's obviously gonna be less serendipity. I traveled like a total vagabond my first few years of traveling solo. I just stayed in dorms, I met people, and they would tell me of a cool place, and then I might wake up the next morning and go, and might not even tell anyone I was going. This didn't bother anyone, it didn't matter. It was la vie bohème. I just did what I wanted. That's not going to be the case with a baby. You have to make sure that he's still going to get all of the food he needs to get when he needs it. His nap is going to come into play, so you're not going to be able to just make spur of the moment decisions in the same way that you used to. Number 8, everything is just going to take longer. I mentioned previously we didn't get going until 2, even though we were waking up at 10 or 11. He needed to eat, he needed to be changed. He kind of wants to be held throughout the morning, so that means that one of us is doing stuff while the other one is entertaining or holding him. We can put him down for a little bit. We brought some of his Love Every stuff with us, and that play gym gets me hours back of every day at home. So we were still able to kind of get him tummy time and entertainment, but it still wasn't quite enough to be able to have the same amount of time back each day that I can get at home. Getting through security takes much longer. Plan on that. There's gonna be extra checks if you bring any kind of food for the baby.
Hello. So we're at the airport, and we just went through pre-check, and they had an issue with how much we brought for him to eat. And I really had to go to battle for you.
Stroller, car seat, that's all gonna have to have extra checks usually. You probably don't want a super tight connection, because what if you get delayed and then you're gonna buy some very expensive diapers to make up for that mistake? Your baby's gonna have needs during this layover. It's just much easier to be able to budget extra time, but that does mean everything is gonna take longer. Number 7, there's more stuff. I'm gonna do a whole other video on everything that we packed, and most importantly, what we didn't pack for this trip. I think we were pretty good at being minimalist, but his stuff still took up a whole half of a large suitcase. And that's just naturally what happens when you have an infant. He was 3 months old when we took this trip, so we needed to bring ample clothes for him. We needed to bring his sleep stuff. He needed to have his sound machine. We needed the shusher. We needed his Magic Merlin suit. We needed all these little things so that he would still be comfortable and able to sleep while we were traveling. Before, I used to travel carry-on only for years. That is not happening with a baby. Thankfully, these things don't really count against your checked luggage, so that's very helpful, on most airlines anyway, but still, it's more things to look after. And I did have a situation where I forgot something completely essential. I forgot my pumps when we were out one day. Unfortunately, I can't just breastfeed Felix. I wish I could. That's not part of our story. And so we had to run to Walmart and get a pump. That made us late to do the gondola. I really wanted to be able to get out and walk around up top, but we had to just do the one where you get up and turn back around because it was the last gondola of the day. We almost didn't make it to that, and it was all because I forgot my pumps because we just had so much stuff. So that brings me to number 6. Inconveniences are going to come up. I'm thinking about a road trip that we did before this trip and the amount of extra times you need to stop to feed the baby, to change the baby, to just handle the baby's needs. Maybe he's over being in the car seat. That definitely happens with Felix. Add so much extra time. For us, it's like 30% more time because of the times that we have to stop to do something for him. Number 5, it's more expensive. Naturally, it's going to be more expensive to travel with an extra person. When they're a lap infant, you usually don't have to pay extra for them to be with you on the flight. But if it's an international flight, you often do, especially if you're going to book a business class ticket, which I am trying to do with our miles. It's an extra $250 on some airlines for him to just have the right to be on my lap. So that's definitely a big surprise for me. Most babies can travel with you into their 2 years of age without having to have their own complete seat, so we're gonna milk that for as long as we can all stand it. But you have to buy more tickets, you have to buy more food, you have to book a bigger place, you have to take all of that into consideration, and with each additional child you have, that's gonna grow exponentially. Number 4, more research is going to be required. We really want to go to Thailand as our first big international trip, but one of the biggest things I was thinking about was, okay, so when I'm in Thailand, we don't drink the tap water, and that's not a big deal. We buy bottled water, we can refill it at some of the refill stations that you see around town in some of the major cities. But I'm gonna have to be cleaning pump parts, I'm gonna have to clean bottles, so does that mean I'm just gonna be going through all of this plastic, all of these bottled water? I guess I could probably use a filter and then boil it, but that assumes that I have a method for boiling. So that's just extra work we're gonna have to do in order to do that. I also heard in Thailand it's hard to find formula, so if you're formula feeding, we combo feed, we're gonna have to bring enough, and we're gonna have to hope that it's enough. At that point, Felix is going to be onto solids, so I'm like, okay, what do Thai babies eat when they're 6 months old? We want to go to a certain island, but I'm kind of like, how do we actually get around that island? Everyone just rents a motorbike. I'm fine with driving a motorbike if only I am on it. There's no way I want to do that with a baby strapped to me. So these are all things that I did not consider before, and it's definitely different when you're traveling with your little heart outside your body. Number 3 is the people have actually been so lovely. I kind of expected we might get a little bit of animosity for bringing a baby on a plane, but if anyone was feeling that way, they didn't outwardly express it. And we actually had just a lot of kindness. Multiple people stopped by to say how lovely he was, and I was just like, that's so nice. They don't have to say that, they just want to. And I was really amazed by how lovely people can be when you're traveling with a baby. I expected the opposite. When we were hiking on a trail, people kept commenting on how nice it was to see a baby out. It's so cute. Thank you. So I just feel like having a baby actually invites people to be lovely to you, and this is something that might give us a little bit more interaction when we travel abroad. Number 2, I get to watch his discoveries. He's pretty young right now, but it was still really cool to go hiking with him for the first time ever and just watch the look of awe on his face as we were hiking through, and the beautiful foliage, and he loves staring at leaves. So for him to be able to look at all these colorful leaves, he was just so into it. And I loved that. I loved watching that. And as he gets older, I can't wait to see the things that fascinate him. I'm actually just really excited to watch him discover the world and to see that through his eyes. Number 1, and this is a big one, I feel like I've unlocked kind of a new level of travel in life. I don't believe that everyone should have children. I don't judge anyone who decides not to. It's the right decision for them. But for me, it just feels like I've unlocked a new level of life. Like, this new experience is really special, and it's kind of silly because I know that a lot of people are parents. It's one of the most common experiences in the world, and yet it still just feels like something that the universe gifted only to me. It feels entirely mine, this bond, this beautiful experience, all of the sacrifices that I make, all of the things that I thought I would resent that I just don't at all, because it's just a gift to have him in my life. And I've met a new version of me through all of this that I couldn't have without him. And so I look forward to the continued growth as his mom and as a parent, and that's just something really cool about traveling with your baby that you wouldn't otherwise experience. So I hope this list helped you to prepare a little bit better, to get you excited. Be sure to watch this video to see our Vermont leaf peeping experience, his first trip ever, and I will see you next week.